Welcome back, boys and girls. It's week 3 and it's Tuesday and it's time for our second lesson. Today in fractions, this is only going to be a very quick lesson. Today we're looking at how to write fractional notation. Our learning intention today is we are learning to recognise when objects, shapes and collections have been shared into halves and quarters and record using fractional notation for half and quarter. Our success criteria: I can recognise when shapes and objects and collections have been shared into halves and quarters. I can record equal parts of a collection in relation to the parts of the whole using pictures and fractional notation for half and a quarter. So today's writing lesson is about writing down fractions. Now, some of you already do it, but I don't know if you understand the real reason behind what you're doing. So in this lesson, we're going to learn how to write the symbols to represent parts of a whole. Using the symbol is much quicker and easier to show this. The symbols are always written with a 1 number on top of another number. Can you see we've got the whole pizza? Well, the whole would just be written as 1. When dealing with a whole shape, we say there is one whole. So here there is one whole circle and it's represented as 1. Right, in our first picture, you can see we've got half of a pizza. Now, if we imagine the whole of that pizza, we would have cut it into 2 pieces, but this is only 1/2. So to write that as a fraction, we're going to put 1 over 2. Now the 1 stands because we've got 1 piece of the pizza, and the 2 at the number, it represents the number of pieces the pizza has been cut into, or the shape or the collection has been divided into. And in this case, it's 2 because it was a half. So therefore, a fraction is 1 piece out of 2, or 1 over 2. Down the bottom, imagine the whole pizza. Now imagine it's been cut in half and then half again, and you've got 4 equal parts. That's how I know it's in quarters. What we've got showing here is 1 out of 4. So the top part, it has to be 1, but because it was quarters, the whole pizza would have been cut into 4. So 4 becomes our bottom number. So this is 1 out of 4, or 1 over 4 to write a quarter. All right, so here's our first activity. I want you to write the fractional notation for each of these shapes. You're going to decide whether it's going to be a quarter or a half. Now, the first thing you need to do, whenever you're looking at a shape and you want to write the fraction, you need to count the number of parts the shape has been cut into. That becomes your bottom number. So I always start with the bottom number first. And then once you've got that, you look up the top and you write how many parts, the number of how many parts have been shaded in. So let's look at the star. The star's been cut into 2 parts, so I'm going to put 2 down the bottom, but only 1 part has been shaded in, so I'm putting 1 at the top, and that becomes a half, and it is, so we've coloured in a half. This is a really easy task. It won't take you very long. Once again, here's a copy of what you'll find on the Jamboard. You can just write the numbers in, or if you're working on paper, quickly draw the shapes and write the fraction next to it. So continuing on what we were doing yesterday, when we were trying to find halves and quarters of a collection of objects, the same thing. This time, the collection has already been divided up. You have to write the fraction of what's been circled. So look at the teddy bears. What fraction of the teddy bears has been coloured in? Is it half or a quarter? Look at the smiley faces. If I put circled around groups, if each group had 3 in it, how many groups would there be? Is it halves or is it quarters? Do the same thing for the bees. How many groups, if I was going to put a circle around 2 bees, how many groups would I get? If it's 4, that would have to be quarters. If 2 groups, it would be halves. And then again for the snail, is it a half or a quarter? Once again, here's a copy of the Jamboard. You just write the numbers in, or if not, copy the pictures and put it on a piece of paper. For this activity, boys and girls, we're going to be using both the words halves and quarters at the top part to label the shapes, and we're going to use the symbols down the bottom to label those shapes, whether they're halves or quarters. Very easy. Always first thing you do is count up how many equal parts the shape has been divided into. If it's 4, we know it's quarters. If it's 2, we know it's halves. Down the bottom, once again, if it's the bottom number is how many parts it's been cut into, and the top number is how many parts it has been shaded in. If you're working on the Jamboard, really easy, just click on the space and up will come a text box and you can type in the words, and the numbers you can just type in the numbers. Or if you're working on a piece of paper, draw the shapes and write the words, and use the symbols down the bottom to indicate whether they're halves or quarters. So here's our last task for today. We're going to be working mathematically. That means we're going to use all the information we know about fractions to solve this problem. And we're going to be able to write our problem out using fractional notation for our answer. So for me, when I'm doing a problem, I often like drawing a picture. So you can draw a picture down the bottom, or if you're working on the Jamboard, I've got counters. You might want to use the counters to help you. All right, so here's the problem. There are 12 caterpillars around a pot plant. 1/4 are on the leaves and 1/2 are on the flowers. The rest of the caterpillars are on the ground around the pot. How many caterpillars are on the ground? Well, I know there's 12 altogether, so if I had my counters, the first thing I'd be doing is getting out my 12 counters. Then I know that I've got to divide it into halves and quarters. So find a half of 12, then find a quarter, and then work out where they are. We know that 1/4 are on the leaves, 1/2 are on the flowers. So what's left of the 12? How many is left of the 12 that's sitting on the ground? Now you can draw, if you're working on a piece of paper, you can draw your answer on the space down below. If you're working on the Jamboard, you can also draw it, or you can use the counters to show me. All right, well that's the end of our maths lesson for today. I'm looking forward to seeing how you worked out this math problem.